everybody. Welcome back to our second round of panelists. It's incredibly great, so I'm going to step right over here. Thank you for staying. Thank you for listening. I would like to call up to the stage now Preet from Coastal, Erica, who is a justice advocate for food, and musician Sam and Alaska. Give them a big round of applause, please. All right, ladies, thank you so much for joining us today. I will give you your microphones. All right, ladies, we're going to do the same icebreaker that we did earlier. If you wouldn't mind stating your name and the worst thing that's happened to you in the service industry jobs that you've worked. Hey, Papa, looks like you were saying.
I was just getting the mic ready. I guess I could start first. Well, I'll talk about the service industry. Can I give 2 examples, actually?
Of course. And your name first?
My name is Samantha. I'm a playwright. I work in the bar industry sometimes for rock shows, and also in the theater industry and the restaurant industry. So a lot of different industries that all seem to come around bars. But yeah, 2 memories that were kind of horrifying. My band got off stage on time, and this guy comes up to us, and he was like, "Oh, I love your all-girl aesthetic." And I was like, "Excuse me?" He's like, I love the all-girl aesthetic." And I was like, "Okay, interesting." No comment on the music, just like that we were all girls on stage with instruments. Another once had a customer who asked me about where I went to school. I was at the restaurant and started talking about how I run a small theater company, and he said, "Oh well, at least you have marriage to look forward to." And I was like, "Okay, all right." So yeah, you run into all sorts of interesting folk around the restaurant industry.
And here you are 3 marriages later.
Yeah.
All right, let's go next down the line.
I'm Alaska. I'm a vocalist and songwriter in a band called The State of Alaska. And I'm also a student at Dalhousie. I study French sociolinguistics and philosophy, which is a lot of busyness for me. I do a lot of reading and yelling at people. I don't know if I can qualify the worst thing that's ever happened to me, but I feel like a lot of the time, like you said, in the music industry, people will look at women on stage less as performers and more as decoration. And so I've definitely interacted with that a lot in my life. And I've also had some people scream some stuff at me while I'm on stage. I think those things are kind of related. I have this one song called Julia, where I sing about someone named Julia, and there was a crowd of gentlemen in the back of one of my shows who just started screaming, "Dyke!" along to me as I sang, which was incredibly uncomfortable.
And you didn't throw your microphone at their heads?
No. It was mentioned in the last panel, we have to be nice in order to make money, and as musicians, I rely wholly on my audience, so you have to treat them with this kind of level of respect, even if it's not reciprocal.
Awesome.
So infuriating. My name is Harpreet. I just go by Harp. I'm the kitchen manager at the Coastal Cafe. The worst thing that ever happened to me was I had a customer, this was at my first kitchen job, come through the open kitchen and tell me that I was doing my mother proud because I was an Indian woman in the kitchen. Yeah, that was fun. That was super fun. Yeah, I just turned around and I was like, cool. And we had him kicked out because there's a 0 tolerance policy on that shit.
Good.
In kitchens that I work in. There's no room for that. Yeah, we just didn't let him pay. Whatever, your food's free, just GTFO, honestly.
He's a free meal for being a jackass.
Yeah, I know, honestly, but we just didn't want him in there anymore. We don't want your money, just go. Just go, it's cool, we'll be fine. Yeah.
My name is Erica. Most of my experience in the service industry was at Good Robot. I'm a very lucky individual. And honestly, I've been extremely privileged. None of the situations I experienced were really felt threatening or anything like that. It was kind of just a fun game I got to play with stupid people. One time I was climbing a ladder and just putting things up to where they belong. And a customer offered to help. And he was like, "Are you sure you got that? You sure you're good?" And that would happen too when I'd lift tanks. It's they fucking pay me to be here, right? This is my job. What are you I appreciate that you're being helpful, but no, you're good. I have tits, and I can lift heavy things. It's fine.
But you frail little being. But you frail little being.
Yeah.
So, some of you ladies have worked in the service industry, more in bars, and some have worked more in restaurants. So I'm going to kind of go a little bit of both. But I first want to talk about the musician standpoint, because you do face a lot of criticism. Like, obviously on stage that is horrible, and I'm so sorry that happened. And off stage as well. So would you guys mind maybe telling me another story about that maybe has happened to you guys?
Yes. So a story about interacting with like violence or misogyny, or just a general.
Yeah, it really can be whatever you feel more comfortable talking about.
Yeah, I feel like in the music industry in general, there is a normalization of sexual violence. A lot of the time, I mean, for decades in music, talking about having sex with women and treating women as objects has been really prevalent. Even today in pop music, you know, there's that British ginger guy. Ed Sheeran has a song, Shape of You, where he talks about the shape of women, and it's like a really common topic in music. And I feel like that interacts with the fact that women are really underrepresented, especially in the rock industry. Like, I play in a band that has another woman in it, but we're about a 50-50 split. And for the most part, if you see women in the music industry, they're singing or they're playing keys. And so in this kind of way, we end up being, I don't want to say tokens, because I feel like that has it's a very loaded term. But in a big way, being a woman in the music industry invites a lot of conversation and invites a lot of comments, and people feel maybe more comfortable approaching women in the music industry and speaking to them in ways that would be otherwise inappropriate, because we're putting ourselves out there and we're on the stage already. And
Like Sam said, the aesthetic.
exactly. I'm more of an aesthetic than I am a performer a lot of the time.
I hate to see it, like, when people's skills are questioned. We actually share the same guitar player, and she was setting up one time, and this really horrified me. She was setting up her pedals, whatever, and this guy kept on coming over and being like, "Oh, let me help you with that." And she was like, "No, I have like 6 pedals. This one plugs into this one. This one does this. Like, I know what's going on. I just need a little bit of time to set up." And he just kept on like putting pressure on her and being like, "Oh, I can give you a hand." She's like, "Listen, I know I have a sound that I'm trying to create, and just give me the space." Another example is setting up at Rock for Ballers, and we were taking a little bit of time, and a couple of people who were involved were being a little bit rude, being like, "Okay, like, are you ready to start? Like, your set time's gonna be cut." And it's like, "Okay, cut our set time, that's fine, but just, you know, we have a couple of pedals going on, just give us the space to set up. We're fine with like a couple less songs." And it's just, I see that more with women. And then another band, I watched them set up, and they took, you know, an extra 5 or so minutes, and nothing was said.
Yeah, absolutely. I definitely have had some, I actually forgot about this because it's so common. When I was recording my last record, I wanted to rent a Nord piano. And I called ahead to make sure they had it. I got there 20 minutes before I said I was going to be, and I stood at the rental desk for an hour. And nobody served me, and nothing happened. And finally, I was able to wave somebody down, and they came up and told me they assumed I was waiting for my boyfriend, and that the keyboard had already been rented, which is really unfortunate. I think that there's a lot of stuff where people consider women to have less knowledge, and they question their like epistemic abilities when it comes to music, especially the technological aspect of music. I've definitely had interactions with people where I've told them how to mix my voice and then been corrected. Well, actually, I went to school for this, and I do know how I'd like to be mixed. Thank you.
You really need to use the piano wire to maybe start strangling people.
Yeah, I've considered it.
So, Hart, you work at the Coastal, which is more of a restaurant as opposed to a bar, of course. You do serve alcoholic beverages at times.
Yes, at 10 o'clock.
At 10 o'clock, that's right.
You can get booze at 10 a.m. Anyway, we'll hook you up then, yeah. If you want to wait, you can order at 9, but you gotta wait an hour.
It's sort of another way.
Yeah, it totally is.
So do you feel like the Safe Bars initiative would be kind of less something that you would feel necessary at Coastal, or do you think it's just as important?
I think it's just as important. I think it needs to be something that's everywhere. People need to be aware constantly of how to react, how to make spaces safe for everyone. We get a lot of people, we are a small space. I don't know if anyone's familiar with the Coastal, but it's mostly just like a lineup, you pay, you eat, you go. But we get a lot of people coming in, harassing other tables for going too slow or, taking their time or whatever. We have a lot of different kind of challenges, but I think safe spaces start with everything. It's not just sexualized violence or feeling unsafe that way. I think it's feeling unsafe in all ways, and I think that's something that bars and restaurants have to keep in mind. It's for patrons, it's for staff, it's for everyone, and it needs to be recognized. And I think the more we talk about it in our own spaces as establishments, the more that people who frequent those establishments understand that that's the standard that we're setting in Halifax now, and that it's not going to be tolerated, regardless of if you're working there, what time of day it is. It needs to be a thing that's constantly on people's minds, and knowing that you're going to get called on it, regardless of where you are and what it might be. And if it's not even in your norm, it's still going to be an issue. I think it's definitely as important.
And just out of curiosity, from your personal opinion, do you think that there would be a lot of restaurants that would support a Safe Bars initiative in their restaurant, or do you think a lot of people would kind of look at it as, well, that's more of a bar thing?
I think there'd be kind of a split on it, but you just got to push harder, I think, at that point. I think a lot of restaurants see that, or think that they're safer because they're not as, it's not more alcohol, it's kind of like the both thing. It's kind of like the alcohol, the food, it's kind of like a more social setting, but it's the same thing regardless of what you're doing there. If you're going somewhere to get drunk, if you're going there to get brunch, it doesn't really matter. You need to feel safe regardless of where you are. And I think most restaurant owners, especially in the city, I can't speak for anywhere else, would be super open to that, because the more safe that your staff and patrons feel, the better your business is going to do. It's, at a business standpoint, from that perspective, it's invaluable, absolutely.
And do you think that people would kind of want to kind of go to places more where they know that they have a Safe Bar initiative, as opposed to a place that's kind of looking over it like, no, we don't need that?
Yeah. I think, I don't know, I don't speak for everyone in this room, but I know for myself, if I know that a place has things in place and their staff is trained, I'm more apt to go there and tell my friends about it and be like, this is a place that we should go, because they're working towards being the change, they're being part of the movement instead of just being passive and being like, oh, we'll let everyone else do it and see if that works. I'd much rather go to a place and give them my money if I know I'm going to be safe there with my friends, regardless of what time I'm there or what I'm doing or what I'm wearing or saying or whatever.
Yeah, absolutely. So a safe space is something that we've all talked about a lot, and not just here, just in general. So for each of you individually, what would make a safe space for you?
I think just being around people that are genuine and that I know are going to have my back. And it could have, I don't know, I would like to learn more about the Safe Bars initiative. I feel like if at some point tonight somebody could tell everybody more about it, that'd be awesome. But I have some assumptions about it. But they could have a title, a sign, a sticker, whatever that says Safe Bars. But unless I see that the staff there are being observant and proactive, and really taking a stand against shit that's going down, I'm not going to feel good about it. It's about the people that are in the space and just, yeah.
Action behind the words.
Mm-hmm. I do some of the supervising and training at my work, and safe space comes up a lot since I started doing it, because I noticed that the training manual talks a lot about safety and workplace safety, but also there's an emotional safety as well. You want to make sure that people do have your back, and a lot of the times I've worked in the restaurant industry for years, and it's just kitchen humor. Well, that's not okay, because that kitchen humor stops when someone starts feeling uncomfortable. So it's just knowing that as soon as you feel uncomfortable, then it's no longer a safe space, and knowing that you have the confidence and everyone else has the confidence that there's someone you can go to and say, look, this isn't okay. And it's actually in the last year and a half, I've actually seen this idea of safety, emotional safety, being taken a lot more seriously, which is really refreshing. It's been a huge improvement, and makes myself feel a lot more safe at work. So yeah, I think that really, that emotional and physical safety is really important to a safe space.
Yeah, absolutely. I feel like a lot of the time when we talk about safe spaces in academia, we're talking about the ability to say things without the fear of being not criticized, but criticized for your identity. and having yourself called out for it. But I feel like something that's really integral to creating a safe space is making sure that a space is accessible and that a space is inclusive. And a lot of time it's really easy in feminist circles for us to falter and to forget that like feminism has to do with women's issues. And insofar as women's issues are the things that affect women, ableism, homophobia, transphobia, and racism are also central to feminism. And that means that if we're going to have a safe space for women, we need to have an accessible space. We need to have a space that's free of homophobia and transphobia and racism. Otherwise, we're not creating a space that's actually going to be safe for everybody involved. I feel like that's integral and it's central. Otherwise, we're not being feminists. We're being
Shitty way feminist.
yes, we're being complicit with power and the power dynamics in our society, and so I think that is really, really important. I also feel like when we're talking about safe spaces, especially in the context of sexualized violence, which there are pamphlets over there if anybody's interested in reading them from Evelyn. One of the things that's really important is knowing that there are lots of folks in our community and in Canada overall who don't feel comfortable reporting sexualized violence to the police. And while it's definitely on the police to be accountable for that and to create situations where they would feel comfortable and to end police brutality, it's also on us as community members, on people who work in the industries, the restaurant, bar, and the music industries overall, to recognize that if somebody has been a survivor of sexual assault, that we have to create a dynamic and a situation and an environment where we are going to support them and believe them and back them up. And I think these are all really integral parts of safe spaces.
Beautiful. Thank you so much.
No, I have nothing. That is very pretty much on there. It's great. It's great.
If I could just add a quick little thing. I started thinking of it after I started speaking, but I guess it was hard for me to answer that initially because I have so much fucking privilege just because of the body I was born into and the way that I feel. And thinking more about it is like, a safe space for me is knowing that it's also a safe space for people who don't have the same types of privilege as me. I don't feel good being in a place that's like super fucking white and super homogenous, where I know someone who doesn't fit into that box is gonna walk in and be like, I don't know, nobody looks like me, nobody like has, yeah.
I definitely, we were talking about this earlier, or maybe I do have something to add. A safe space for me is seeing other people who look like me in different bars, and I think that is something that we have to focus on in Halifax a lot more. If I saw someone who looked like me behind the bar, I would feel more safe asking my friends and taking them there, as opposed to walking into an establishment where I don't feel like I belong. And that happens a lot here. It's changing, it's awesome. I don't have a problem walking into a place that's predominantly white and just being there being myself. But I know a lot of my friends who do. I know when I first moved here, I felt very isolated because everywhere I went, I'd go in and the place would just go quiet. And everyone would look at the door and like see like, you know, myself and my ex walking in. They're like, oh, okay, here are like these two very brown skinned people walking in, and how do we navigate that? You get a lot of weird questions, but I think the more, and it also it's demographic, right? Like it's the community is getting larger, and it's based on experience and stuff like that, and I totally get it. As being a restaurant manager, I understand with hiring and stuff, but it would definitely feel safer if I felt that I was more represented in the bars that I went to, especially in the city.
Yeah, absolutely. And you touched on reporting things to police. That was something that I wanted to bring up. You don't have to get into specifics, but have any of you had to report any of your own personal sexual assaults to police before? And if so, what kind of treatment were you given by the police?
That's a hard one. I've never had to do it in this city. I know. Oh, sorry. Yeah, I've never had to do it here in Halifax. I'm from BC originally, and going to the cops was just never an option. It kind of gets brushed off a lot because it happens so much, and there was always that little like comment about like we don't know who to believe. So I think after experiences like that, you just are less likely to go to the police because you don't feel like you're going to be heard or respected or anything like that. So for me personally, it's not my first option ever, really, unfortunately. Yeah.
How about you, ladies?
No, I've never reported anything to the police in that regard, but I did so a while ago I was traveling across Canada and I was in Ottawa, and an incident occurred in a bar in Ottawa that was quite violent toward me, and as opposed to going to the police, I went to the security who was there and was absolutely not helped in any way, just sort of like told to be quiet and to leave, and it was very uncomfortable. I don't feel comfortable in Ottawa anymore. I'm sorry, any Ottawans out there. I'm sure you're fine. I feel like police is a big thing, but also security. Like we have these kind of stand-in officers in bars, specifically in clubs, and there is an overrepresentation of men in security and an overrepresentation of white men in security, which is absolutely going to like lend itself to people not being comfortable reaching out. And when they do reach out, because of the normalization of a lot of this stuff and because of like systemic problems that reflect a lot on the way people view the world, when they do reach out, they might not be believed. And I think that not only being represented in the people who work in bars is important, but also in those who are supposed to be taking care of the bars.
That was a really good point. Do you ladies feel like over the past few years that things have gotten safer at all in bars in Halifax? Or do you think that it's pretty much just about the same?
I think it depends on where you go. Honestly, there's some places that definitely take it upon themselves to make sure that everyone feels comfortable, and there's some places that just don't give a shit. Yeah.
Yeah, I would say it definitely varies. There's a couple spots that I can think of where the security guard was informed. There was an incident where someone was worried about someone attending, and the security guard was informed, and they were quite confident. They were like, "Look, thank you so much. I will keep an eye on this individual." It made the person involved in the situation feel really comfortable being in the bar. And just, having that confidence that someone believes them and is going to, make sure that their safety is really important to them. So that was really refreshing because you sometimes don't always expect that. So that's huge. But yeah, I would definitely say it depends where you go. Yeah.
Yeah, totally. I feel like I'm gonna say things aren't getting safer. I feel like I'm going to go there. I feel like we're definitely having more conversations about especially emotional safety, which is something that you brought up. I think a really important thing that you brought up. I feel like because we're having more conversations, people are coming out of the woodwork. People who disagree and people who have platforms and are very vocal. I know that's happening at Dalhousie, where I study, where things, maybe they were varyingly safe before, but now they're adamantly and vocally unsafe. Because there are some people who have misogynist and white supremacist ideas who are creating a culture.
They're creating unsafe spaces.
Exactly, and intentionally so. And they say, we're here to make you feel uncomfortable. At my school right now, we're running there's an election for the Dalhousie Student Union, and somebody who is running for Vice President of Academic Affairs and External he calls himself a conservative, but he's not really a conservative. He's a white supremacist.
It's fine when you can just stop those terms for yourself.
Yeah. It's really, really uncomfortable. And I know I went to the debate, and oh goodness, did I ever go to the debate, and did I ever hear a lot of manipulation of statistics in order to make people look bad. It was really just horrendous. And it's this kind of stuff where I feel like probably these people always existed, but because these dialogues are so prominent now, they're coming up and they're being vocal and they're having a platform, and that allows their ideas to spread. And I think there's this very liberal idea where it's somebody is wrong and we can argue with them in the free marketplace of ideas. But these people don't necessarily have ideas as much as they have poison to spread. I was thinking about this the other day, if you had accidentally ingested a poison, you wouldn't try and counteract it by eating a bunch of broccoli. Saying good things doesn't necessarily end the bad things, and I feel like what we need to do in order to combat this unsafing of spaces is mobilize and organize and actually adamantly and like effectively create safe spaces and be really, really vocal and really prominent and present on the platforms that we do have about the things that we do support and the people that we want to back.
I find it's different sometimes too leaving the North End. And I find sometimes my ideas of safety can be skewed once I leave the North End. So like, oh yeah, even just, I know a couple bars recently have denied access to people that have been outed as sexual predators, which is fantastic, and I think such a just important step in their direction. But I mean, these are North End bars that support a community of artists and people attending to try to create that, and it's like, how can we bring that to the main downtown core and that idea of community? There seems to be sometimes a little bit of separation. So that's something I think really it could drastically improve.
And what do you think causes that separation?
I mean, just off the top of my head, the North End for me feels like a community often, where downtown I think there's a lot more students, a lot more people coming and going, so you don't get that same idea of community. There's a little more turnaround. I don't know.
Yeah, something I'll add about just whether or not things are getting better or worse. I don't know, but because I can't tease it apart from, you know, just over the years having learned more, talked to more people, and become more confident. I still, every time I go to a fucking bar, I have to act like a security guard. I leave there feeling like I should have gotten paid to go. Because every fucking time I go out, and often it is, you know, if it, it's usually not in the North, you know, if I go to a show at the Seahorse or whatever, I always come upon an interaction where I feel like intervention is necessary. And that's not happening from anyone else around. And I have that, I don't know, I like that shit. I should be a bouncer or something, I don't know. But it's not, but that's not slowing down. That's still happening every time I go out.
It was a couple months ago, I was out at a bar and I was just sitting by myself working at a table, and I was sitting facing the door. I watched this man go out to have a cigarette. He just, without even thinking, put his beer on the ledge, walked outside to have a cigarette, came, picked it up, took a big swig. What do you think it would be like to have that? Can you imagine a world where you could just like leave your drink and not even a thought in your head?
It's fun to think about. It is, honestly, and I'm gonna be real, like, I don't think it's ever gonna fucking happen. We're always gonna be in like, I think, kind of like a little bit of a little area that we always feel a little bit unsafe. Just for me, like, speaking personally, I don't trust other people, regardless of how good the situation gets. Because I feel that as soon as I let my guard down, that's when something bad's gonna happen. And I think that's what we've been conditioned to constantly think about. I don't walk outside without my dog after a certain time of night. I don't go to certain bars at certain times of night. I pin drop my life to all my friends. Like, everywhere I am, if it's, you know, like A, B, and C, depending on who I'm meeting, if I'm on a Tinder date, whatever, doesn't matter. Like, there's gonna be people who know where I am constantly. And that, for me, even if, like I said, if it gets better, it's never gonna change. Because as soon as I said, like, if I don't take care of myself, I can't count on other people to take care of me. And that's terrifying. It's a terrifying reality, and I think that's what we have to realize, is that's what we have to go through every time you go anywhere. To the grocery store in the middle of the day shouldn't be a terrifying experience, but sometimes it is. And sometimes it's a reality for people who get harassed on the daily, and it's unfortunate that we as females, or people who identify as female, or whatever you identify as, it's not okay to feel that way, but I don't think that it's going to be a time where we can not worry about it, and it's unfortunate, but it's a fucked up world, man.
So, in relation to that, and I know I did ask it with the first panel, what do you guys think about having a safe space to be able to put your drinks, and what would that safe space look like to you? There's a lot of trust in that.
Yeah. So I feel like it was mentioned last panel as well. People really often will go to bartenders and say, "Will you take care of this for me while I go out for my cigarette or go to the bathroom?" And I feel like that already pretty well exists. That we can reach out to people and we can ask them, but it's us who have to do the reaching out as patrons. And I feel like if the inverse were true, and if there were people who maybe like bars and restaurants where they had like signage or even just some sort of public display, like if you want to leave your drink with us, here's where you go and here's who you talk to, because that's something that you might want to do. I feel like there is a lot of trust that goes into that. I feel like I feel compelled to hide my drink wherever I go, which is so unfortunate. It's so wild, and you'd think, well, nothing's ever going to happen to me, but then of course things do happen all the time. And like you were saying, like, oh, if I let my guard down, that's when something's going to happen. It's that I have let my guard down before, and things have happened to me. Because it's not just a paranoia that we have, it's a real, actual problem that goes really often unreported and very often unseen. And so I feel like just being, like, speaking to that on behalf of institutions, bars, restaurants, wherever. Like, as a performer, if somebody is at my show and wants to leave their drink with me, like, I should be saying that before the show. I should be introducing that when I'm doing that. And I'm not, because I don't think of it. But now I've thought of it. So if you ever come to my shows and you want to drink with me, then absolutely great. I won't drink any of it. At least not very much of it. Yeah, I feel like having these initiatives and being vocal is really important. I feel like when we're talking about social change and we're talking about changing mindsets, like integral to that is discussion and discourse, which means speaking out on the behalf of your business. And that means saying, I know this is a problem and I believe you that this is a problem, and if you don't feel safe and you want to leave your thing with me, I allow that, and not the other person has to go and reach out.
So we did talk about, you mentioned emotional safe spaces, but we often talk about safe spaces just for physical harassment. So I would like somebody, if you don't mind, to kind of explain to me maybe a time where you have felt emotionally unsafe within a location that you were in. Which is, again, I know all the time, but all the time.
Yeah, all the time. I mean, that's the thing, isn't it? You never know who's going to respond and what they're going to say. And that's a big part of feeling, I think, emotionally unsafe. And I know it was you who brought it up, Sophie. I was going to say, please cut me off. But I feel like, you get up and you talk about things and you're discussing things with people. And I have a lot of privilege in my identity. I'm a white woman. I'm a queer white woman, but I'm very femme. And so I don't feel very targeted very often. But I know a lot of people, when we're talking about safe spaces emotionally, it means not hearing people talking about you in ways that are inappropriate. And I know that's really common for people with intersecting identities and really marginalized people, where you walk into a space and people are just going to be, right? And that's absolutely inappropriate. That's not conducive to a safe environment. And that's not conducive to an emotionally safe environment either. While I might not be under threat of physical harassment, I don't think that there isn't violence involved when we're talking about emotional safety either. I feel like the threat of violence is kind of a violence in itself. And that's a huge component of emotional safety.
Well, I think if ever there were a time where a customer came over to me and, reported not even just a physical but emotional, unsafety, I would take it very seriously. Would I kick out the person right away? No, I'd probably go over and talk to them and try to deal with the situation. But if it came down to it, I would act on it, and I would hope that my place of work would support me. Just as the environment that we try to create at work for the other staff, why should it be any different for the customers? We've already had to deal with a couple employees and they no longer work with us due to sexual harassment. Or even there was a gentleman who made a trans joke actually, and two of us complained. It made us incredibly uncomfortable, and just was a joke. No, that person was written up. And if they were to ever do it again, they would be out of there so quickly. So yeah, same with a customer. When we can't write a customer up, but we can try to deal with it and remove them from the establishment. So I don't see how that. Yeah, I think they can be created. I mean, whether your place of establishment supports you in that, I mean, you can only hope that they would. But
it's really hard to kind of police that in particular because there are so many people that will pass off like, oh, I was just kidding. And another thing that I've noticed a lot is even with like stand-up shows in town, people make really awful, disgusting jokes, but they continue to have them back weekly. Sometimes these people host the shows. What do you think bars should be doing in that aspect? There's some really gross stuff out there.
Don't fucking bring them back. Like, yeah, sakes.
No, exactly. I feel like when we're talking about comedy too, a good question to ask is, what the hell is a joke? Like, what does a joke do when you make one?
Why do you think that's okay? I want to sit down with that person and be like, tell me about your humor. Why do you feel that's okay?
Yeah.
Like, just have a conversation with them.
Absolutely. I think there's a lot of.
Do they not know? Because like you say,
See, this is the thing. Right? This is the thing. When we make jokes, and I'm not going to cite any sources because I don't know which one's exciting, but I am going to talk a little bit about humor, and I think there has been a lot of, I guess, studies done. A lot of people have done research into what jokes are and what jokes do. When you make a joke, what you're doing is you're creating an in-group, people who are involved in the joke, and some target of the humor. And sometimes that target can be something totally innocuous. And sometimes it's another person or an identity. And in those situations, what you're doing, what you're creating in your community is an in-group, people who are not involved in that identity, and somebody who is being targeted. It's funny because we don't feel like we're being targeted. It's funny maybe sometimes because we do. You know, sometimes we make jokes about ourselves, and that's a sort of different thing. But I feel like when comedians get up and they start talking about other people and other identities and targeting aspects of other humans, they're actually creating a divide between us, those laughing at the joke, and them, those the target of the joke, which is absolutely inappropriate. It is absolutely inappropriate. And I feel like we wouldn't take it if it wasn't under the guise of humor. And yet, because people are laughing, we do. And I feel like if somebody got up on stage at a music show and started saying a whole bunch of racist bullshit, you'd be like, well, you're not playing here again. But because somebody laughs, well, you know, they're bringing patrons in. Maybe they're helping us pay the bills.
And then there's a lot of those people that will, like, if anybody calls them out on stage, they will say, obviously, very unnice things back to them and kind of just leave it as, it's a joke, you need to understand it's a joke, but they won't take in the other side of, no, this isn't a joke and that's why.
Yeah, well, it's a joke is not a counter to an argument. It's just, that doesn't say anything. Aside from I wasn't being serious, but that if you weren't being serious, why did you say it? I don't understand.
You wrote it down, thought about it, and rehearsed it.
Yes. Probably said it in front of a bunch of your friends.
How do you ladies feel about that? Have you ever been to any of the shows in town that have kind of, even not even just comedy shows, just like shows in general where you've had some bad times? Because we do have a lot of events and shows in town.
I don't go to comedy shows very often, but the one that I witnessed that was painful. It was this famous guy that I fucking grew up watching on TV, and he didn't know his audience at all. He obviously didn't know. And he was just like resurfacing a bunch of shit, like, I don't know. He spent like 15 minutes talking about Donald Trump's comment about grabbing someone by the pussy. You know, and like he was implying that he wasn't in agreement with that, but he still kept repeating it, kept talking about it, and therefore, you know, an uncomfortable, it was shitty, you know, and like, yeah, that was my experience with that kind of bullshit.
I'm kind of curious, can you say who it is?
I don't remember his name. He was on MTV or something.
Those classic MTV comedians. Yeah, so there, like I said, there are lots of shows in town. There are shows all week, everywhere, all the time. There's definitely places that shows have been where they aren't the safest, of course, but then there's some times where they are where they should be safe, and stuff does still happen. What can we do as a society?
Educate. I was talking to Erica earlier. It's like I hear a lot of people say in the community, it's not my job to educate. if you're seeing something that is wrong, it is your job to educate, because what you're doing is making it safer for the next person that encounters this person, and educating and maybe broadening someone's world and horizons that they may not have thought about in that way before. A lot of, at least where I come from a lot of hate and stuff like that comes from a place of ignorance and fear. And the more that you dispel that and put it in their face, like, look, I'm actually a human too, and I have feelings, and this is who I am as a person, and if you want to engage me in a conversation and learn who I am, then let's talk. And then if you want to make jokes after, that's cool, whatever. But as long as you're doing it, it's hard. You just gotta have the conversations, and you have to have the uncomfortable conversations with people you don't want to have those conversations with, because sometimes they don't go how you think they're gonna go. But I am definitely steadfast in my belief as it is your job. It's your job to educate and make it better for everyone. And because if we don't, then who the fuck's going to? If we're all gonna say that it's not my job to educate, then no one's gonna learn.
No, that's exactly.
You know, it's uncomfortable, but it's a conversation that needs to be had, and it has to come from a place of understanding from both perspectives. If you come from a point of hate and hostility, we're not going to get anywhere with any fucking movement ever. It's just going to keep being a bash of, a clash of people being like, well, I'm right, you're wrong. We're not going to get anywhere. We're going to go in this fucking circle that I feel like we're doing now, sometimes in the climate that we're in, because we're all so steadfast in our beliefs on what is right and what is wrong, instead of coming to a common, just a notion of, you know what, let's just treat each other with respect. You can have your own beliefs, but just be a little bit more kind with your navigation on it. That's all I am.
So many things. I love that if not me, then who?
Yeah.
I feel like that is just so on the nose. Yeah, okay, I'm gonna buy into the idea that it isn't somebody's job to educate somebody else. If you're being problematic and if you're saying things that are inappropriate, it is absolutely on you for having done that. You're the one who's accountable for it. But if you're not going to be accountable for it and no one's going to stop you, then we're not going to get anywhere. And I feel like insofar as I am responsible for things being good for me and for people that I care for, that I'm also responsible for making sure things are good for me and people that I care for. And that's going to involve having conversations. I also understand that there are a lot of people who feel it unsafe calling people out for stuff. And I know that there are a lot of times when we do begin a conversation and that conversation turns violent. And so I feel like as a community and as a society, in order to stop that, we need to organize and we need to back each other and we need to make sure that we have safe establishments like this one where a call out is happening and violence is going to be immediately not tolerated. The call out is going to be immediately backed before it gets violent.
But I should probably just hire an educator, someone who stands there and can, if there's a problem, come over and help educate.
Processing station.
Yeah, exactly. Will it actually happen? We probably know. But I do think it's important. It's so hard sometimes to kind of stomach the anger that you have, if someone, insults you or if one of your friends or says something, horribly offensive, and it's just, sometimes it's really hard to stomach that and not meet anger with anger, but, just asking questions sometimes and hoping that, you can make a small difference and hope that we'll take that and reflect on it and think about, what they said or why that was problematic. Yeah.
Also, use your privilege.
Yeah.
If you're in a position of privilege and you don't feel like you're going to be targeted in this situation and you see something wrong happening, use your fucking privilege and go in there and intervene. Be a good ally, not a passive one. Be an active ally.
I think coming from a place, coming from the brewing industry, I will say, and Emily touched on this too in the last round, men need to talk to other men. Because if the man, if this person who's saying a sexist comment, for example, is toward a woman, they're obviously already not respectful of the type of person that is receiving that commentary, and so they're not gonna receive the defense as effectively as if someone that looks and feels and acts and talks like them does. So, exactly, use your fucking privilege, and it's hard, but do it, please. Yeah.
Yeah, there was a great article about being an activist rather than an ally. So actually, like being active and doing something rather than just being like, oh yeah, I support that or I support that person. It's like do something about that. When you have the chance and the opportunity, say something. Be active for it.
How do you ladies personally handle if you are with somebody who does witness something or tells you a story that happened and you're like, oh, well, what did you do about it? And they say, oh, well, I just kind of left it as it was. How do you handle the inactivity?
I think it's a case to case. It's a personal thing. If you're not going to act and you don't feel comfortable doing it, I'm not gonna fault you for it. Some people don't feel comfortable doing it regardless of what space they're in, regardless of what backup they have, and it is what it is. You can't force people to stand up for what you yourself believe is right because they may not have the same perceptions and experiences as you do. And it is what it is. We're all human. We're not going to all feel the same way. But I think it's honestly, like I say that all the time, but just coming from it as a point of kindness. You can give them your opinion and tell them how you feel and why you think what they're saying is wrong, but you can't really change anyone's mind without them experiencing what you're talking about. Just coming from a point of being a minority and having allies and people who are with me and support me and actively are trying to make the change. It's just sometimes you just can't. You just can't. There's some battles that you just can't win, and you kind of have to just move on and try to do the ones that you can and do as best you can. But it can't fault someone for not feeling the same way as I do.
Of course.
Yeah.
So there's been a large movement of ladies ready to go out and kick ass. Like, time is up. It's enough of how we've all been treated for a really long time, since human birth. So, what type of resistance have you each faced in kind of just being unapologetically yourself?
Like resistance to being.
Resistance to just being a badass woman, wanting to be a badass woman. It's out there.
I can't think of specific examples. All I can say is that a lot of men, I'm sorry, are fucking terrified of strong women. And that manifests in a lot of different ways. But that comes through in many, many forms. And you have to think of it like we have no choice, but to think of it from a place of compassion. Like, yes, you've been socialized this way. I understand. But that's at the core of it. That's what the resistance looks like. It's fear. It's fear of the unknown.
Yeah. I definitely hear the B word a lot. I'm very regularly called a bitch. I'm very regularly classified as a bitch. Sometimes I don't want to smile at you, and sometimes that's okay. I'm a band leader, and I know a lot of men who are band leaders who can just sort of instruct people to do stuff. And if I want people to do things effectively, occasionally I have to ask it in the form of a question. Or I have to sandwich it between two compliments. Because I'm just like, nah, I don't like that. Well, you do it this way. Why don't people quit my band? Because I'm a bitch. And then I go into cafes and they're like, that's the last guy I heard. She fired her whole band. What a bitch. Like, I didn't do that. I just didn't play nice, I guess. And I feel like I'm not entitled to not playing nice. Because people look at women and they assume we need to be agreeable, we need to be passive, we need to be comfortable and maternal. And none of those fucking things.
Yeah, whereas if you were a male in a band, you would be like a powerful band member.
Yeah, but not a bitch.
Good. Oh no. All right, ladies, I have one final question for you. You are all strong, independent, powerful women. What would you like to pass on your words of wisdom on how to be a badass bitch?
Don't take shit. Don't take shit from anyone. Honestly, we're so conditioned to just smile and look fucking pretty and just be like, oh, it's okay. It's not fucking okay. If you don't like it, call it out. I don't care who's there, who's looking, who's hot. Just fucking call it out. You are your own person. You are strong. You mean a lot more than you think you do, and it's not fucking okay. Just call it out. Honestly, just be your own person and don't apologize for it. Don't apologize for that shit.
Yeah, absolutely. No more sorries.
No more sorry.
No more fucking sorries.
No.
I'm so sorry, but do you mind doing this thing for No more of that. Fuck that shit. I feel like strong, independent women is great, but also don't worry about not being independent. Like, I feel like being dependent on a community and on people who support you is so important, especially in the culture and the climate that we live in. Like, be strong with the people who make you strong, and don't be afraid of doing that.
Yeah, the tenderness is punk rock.
My main advice is take care of yourself and have compassion for yourself. You too have been socialized in a particular way that is not conducive to your empowerment as someone who presents as female. And so that's where it starts. Like, it's taken a long time for me to like get to where I can be like, I'm gonna fucking take you down if I fucking see you try to, like, in my experience, but it's like self-care is so important, and it's like it might feel counterproductive in this kind of go society to like, just chill for a minute and take a bath and maybe breathe, but it's really important, and from there that's when you can cultivate that strength to be able to stand up for yourself and for your peers. So take that. Feel good.
These are all such great points. It's like finding, I don't know, it took so long to find that confidence to be able to, hear something and feel like it's not okay to actually like do something about it, which is so important. But just understanding that you can't always keep that face of that like badass bitch on all the times, and sometimes you can take it off and ask for help, and that's cool too. And just, finding that balance and like the juxtaposition of what it is to like be a badass woman, and knowing that that's okay too. Yeah.
Be gentle with yourself. You're human. We fuck up. Like, we're all just, like, you know what I mean? Like, we all have the same basic needs and wants and whatever. Just be kind to yourself. Treat yourself like you would treat your best friend. Honestly, like, we forget that a lot. We give a lot more support to our friends, and we forget to kind of give that to support to ourselves. And it's just, like you said, take care of yourself.
Absolutely, absolutely. I feel like a lot of the time that kind of like tenderness and softness is stigmatized because we do associate with femininity, and we do live in a culture of patriarchy, and so we forget that being a badass woman also means doing the things that are like initially deemed feminine, and owning them, and being soft, and being tender, and being maternal, if that's how you feel like you want to be.
Thank you all so much. It has all been amazing. Thank you everybody for coming out, and for Ladies Series for putting us on, and for Timberland for hosting all my comments. Thank you, ladies, and I hope you all have a great rest of your night. Thank you.